All right, hey there. This is Chris with the Zipper Podcast. Today we are lucky enough to have our guest Jason Busch, who is the owner of Body Balance Strength and Wellness out of Boulder. Jason, thanks for coming on for the
You're welcome.
podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Amazing. So we were just talking about how you've been in the industry for almost 30 years now. So I'm sure you have a lot of nuggets for folks who are either currently fitness business owners or operators, as well as people who might be hoping to get into it. But first, I'll pass it off to you. Tell us a bit about Body Balance, and then we'll dive in.
All right, sounds good. So Body Balance, the current version and in the version that we're gonna run with for quite a while is an integrated strength and wellness facility. We really bring athletes in or weekend warriors or the average individual who has a need or a want and a need. And so we have career personal trainers working for us, working out of our space. We have physical therapists working out of our space. We have myofascial release therapists working out of our space, and then and myself. And so um, generally, kind of what we do is we work with everybody from somebody who just wants to hire a personal trainer and either once or twice or ongoing training, and whether it's once or twice or short term, the trainer meets with the right for rights programs, and then we encourage them to do the programs here. We do sell memberships and teach some fitness classes as well to just kind of keep it multifaceted and keep a new stream of people coming in. And so that's kind of what we do. We do a fitness assessment with everybody that comes in, or really, I'm sorry, it's a movement assessment. This fitness is a stretch on that one. I wanted an assessment that I could do on anybody, and it'll tell me a lot about what I need to know, and I can do it in 2 minutes or less in street clothes. And so we do the selective functional movement analysis with every client that comes in. So the SFMA is part of the FMS education system. And so we take them in and we evaluate what the results of that FFMA are, and then we make recommendations from there as to whether they need to, they're really struggling with mobility. Then we like them to see the myofascial release therapist, who, I'm biased because she's my wife, but she's good at what she does, and so I like to see them see Silvana. And then when they're done with her, then usually they come and see me. And we do a movement analysis, like an in-depth, first session movement analysis. And we learn to do myofascial release. We learn to do um, movement analysis and movement drills to help with mostly, it's always T-spine, shoulders, hips, so on and so forth, ankles. And then I either work with them, or depending upon the level of the severity and the needs, or I send them to one of the other trainers that works out of the space. And everybody's got, a decade or more of experience. And then the physical, if they need PT, we refer them to our PTs. If their PTs refer people back to us, and it's good. It's a good business plan. We're in a small space, about 3,600 square feet. And very machine minimal, mostly sort of functional training, if you will, kettlebells and weights and on cables and suspension training and medicine balls and a lot of floor space so that we can move around and do everything from, traditional bodybuilding sort of to functional fitness training to movement work to core training to kind of everything. It's a really good version of Body Balance, having had multiple versions over the years.
Great.
So
Yeah, I mean, it
that's
sounds
Body
like
Balance.
it sounds like you do a little bit of everything. So I have a bunch of questions off of that. But I guess, can you tell us a bit about like the founding of Body Balance, what that process was like, and maybe any tips you might have for other folks who are either beginning their journey to gym ownership
Yeah,
or might be interested in owning a gym at some point?
sure. Hey, don't do it. No, I'm kidding. Um,
No competition.
don't do it. Yeah, not in Boulder. It's busy enough here.
Yeah.
No, I'm 53 years old, so I'm a 30-year veteran of this industry in Boulder. Um, And, for me, very traditional story. I'm very tall, 6'6". I started as I grew up here in Boulder, graduated from high school here, had to move to Michigan to live with my father in order for him to satisfy some needs on his end before he was comfortable launching me to college. So I finished up, moved back to Boulder after a couple of years in Michigan, and Michigan is really where I got my start as a gym rat, if you will. I was a skinny kid. I just didn't like my physique and didn't like the way I looked, and decided, I didn't know anybody when I moved to Michigan. So I decided, okay, now's the time, right? So that launched my fitness journey. So I was in Michigan for 2 years, just working out at a world gym there, just, going from, 150 pounds to 175, 85, somewhere in that arena, trying to put on some muscle mass and change my physique. So all of a sudden, I had this realization. I was moving back to Colorado, back to Boulder to go to CU. And I was like, oh man, I really love this fitness aspect of it. I'm going to go be a physical therapist. So I switched my major, went into the sciences, did the PT, did the Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology route, got out, and spent a little bit too much time in school because I was due to some scheduling issues and some major changes and, so on and so forth. So I started working as a personal trainer in 1995 in Boulder. And I think I lost. Oh, and I'm back. Okay, looks like I lost you. So I started working as a personal trainer in 1995 in Boulder after graduating from CU, and I really loved the gym environment. Right, I was working at a traditional gym in downtown Boulder, small, but a very traditional hours of operation, locker rooms, cardio area, aerobics area, strength training. Very traditional gym, and I really just kind of blossomed in that environment. I really liked it, and it, just really, I really enjoyed it. And so at that point, I was 90, so I was 25. So when I got to be 28 years old, by the time I guess 27, I decided that I just really would like to own a gym, because it just seemed like such a, I knew I wasn't going to be a personal trainer forever, but I didn't want to be out of the industry. And I knew financially, like at that time, you got to understand, this is 1995, right? Like the average personal training price was $30 a session. And so, it was really hard to make it as a personal trainer, to really make a living. You could exist. You could be an actor bartender, even if you work at 30, 35 hours a week. Most personal trainers work just the right amount in order for them to support their lifestyle, right? So they like to play, they're skiers, they're snowboarders, they're cyclists, they're runners, they're climbers, they're, outdoor enthusiasts in some capacity, or they're athletes, they're gym athletes, right? And so they need to train. And so most personal trainers just have to work that, whatever that minimum is, so that they can support their lifestyle. And so I just, in the 90s, even as a full-time trainer, it was very difficult to, at 25 years old, to like make enough money to live alone, or not, let me be clear about something. It's hard to make money in this industry, period. But at that point, I had this assumption, hey, I'm going to open a gym because then I'll have all this other different revenue sources, and I'll be able to take that next step in life, which is what I really wanted to do. And I also, as a personal trainer, when you're not working, you're not getting paid, right? And so I'm like, okay, I love this industry. I really want to work. I really like working out. I mean, it's one of those things that just clicked with me. And, especially in my 20s and 30s, I'm just training hard. And so I thought the pathway to open a gym would be the next step in the evolution of Jason, if you will. And so it was complicated. It was hard. It was painful. Ultimately, it got me where I'm at today, and I learned a lot. But boy, those early days of gym ownership, being young, thank God I was young. I recognized early on that, owning a gym and opening it on a shoestring budget, which is really what we did, it's hard. It's a lot of work. I mean, it's long hours. When you think about a traditional gym, it's different now because everybody owns a boutique studio, and they're either a class-based system like, CrossFit, if you will, Orange Theory, something along those lines, or they're a boutique facility kind of like mine, where they're catering to personal trainers and they're doing what I'm doing. But back in those days, it was a gym, it was a bodybuilding gym. And so you opened at 6 in the morning, you closed at 10 o'clock at night, you were open 7 days a week. And, it doesn't, on a shoestring budget, you don't really have the option to, um, financially just go out and hire a bunch of employees and train a bunch of staff and so on and so forth. After spending a fortune on a build out, spending a fortune on equipment, and and then what's left? Very little at that point. So you have to sort of figure that out on your own. So I had a business partner at the very beginning. We worked together as personal trainers out of the gym that we were working at, and so we just transitioned from that gym where we were working as personal trainers to the gym that we had owned, that we were opening. It wasn't that smooth. There were definitely some issues. The owner of the gym that we were working out was difficult. And I get it. I mean, he was protecting his asset. He's concerned about one of his busiest personal trainers or two of his busiest personal trainers, moving 10 blocks away or 15 blocks away and opening their own facility. And, two revenue sources of trainers plus the clients just walk out the door and walk into the other facility.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I get it. As an older individual, I understand how difficult that can be. As a younger man, I thought that was pretty lame on his part. I mean, how the whole thing happened, how he approached me. And we'll circle back to the story later because he comes back into it later. So, but in any event, after being kicked out of that gym, kind of floundered for a little bit, working as a personal trainer, which was fine. I opened my gym, and that, we kind of sputtered along for a couple of years. We kind of broke even and allowed us to, I mean, we were able to make enough money to hire an employee or two. We had some good friends that were helping us out. Like, it was very much a community gym, small. I think it was 4,000 square feet, 4,500 square feet, something like that. So it was small. The overhead was low. And then life happens, and, partnerships disintegrate, and landlords do things that don't jive with me as a business owner. And so an opportunity had come up to open or to buy. I'd worked out of a personal training gym or out of a gym downtown, and I'd left that and opened my own place, and the opportunity for me to buy that place that I was working at came back up. Mm-hmm. And so at that time, I broke the lease that we were in, bought out my business partner, and bought the gym that I was working at as a personal trainer, and combined those facilities back under one roof. And
quick question on that. So, quick question on that. So, how did you finance that? Was it just like bank loan, friends and family? How did that work?
No. So, the owner carried. It was an owner carry. So the guy that I bought the gym from carried the note. And so, he got the interest and he carried the note. And it was a hefty, I mean, like we paid, we overpaid, way overpaid for that business. But I was young, and all I saw was, here's an opportunity to get out of a business partnership that I have that's complicated, and to take my business, which is break even, and his business, which is break even. And I'll tell you, break even is the curse of a business, because usually when you're breaking even as an owner, you're either, when you're break even, you're either taking your money, and that's, because I'm working as a trainer inside of my own facility as well. So I'm taking that money and I'm putting it back into the business to keep the business afloat, which means, personally, I mean, I still have bills to pay, mortgages and, car payments and everything else. Right. And, or you're losing your, if you lose your ass, you can only lose your ass for so long. Pretty soon you can only hemorrhage money for so long. So you have to close door. If you're a break-even business, it's a real struggle, right? Because next month's going to be different. Next month's going to be different. Next month's going to be different. It never really does. But you sort of in this with a passion, and you just, I never saw myself doing anything else. I mean, that was part of the thing, is the perseverance associated with just putting one foot in front of the other, getting up day after day and going to the gym and like finding solace in the weights, and like, even when things were hard, you just focus, just that 1 hour a day where I could get my workout in and just not have to stress about all the other shit, the lawsuits and all the other crap that's going on. But so this was an opportunity for me to take these two businesses and mold them together and get rid of a partnership that was really tough, right? So the owner of the other business he approached me and he's like, "Hey, I'll carry the note." So he carried the note. So we made hefty payments to him on a monthly basis. And then I bought my partner out over time as well. So he kind of carried the note, if you will.
Mm.
I didn't owe my partner very much, very little money in the grand scheme of things. So that was an easy one for me to sort of put to bed. But the buyout of the other businesses to combine those two was complicated and expensive. And then also we had this lease that we had to deal with, right? So we moved out of this commercial lease, and we had a commercial lease, and we ended up breaking the lease. We had some issues. The landlord was going to do construction on the space. So it was a single story building, and he was putting in a bunch of lofts above our space, which means roof penetrations and floor penetrations and columns coming down all over the place, right?
Mhm.
So we kind of use that as an opportunity to say constructive eviction, and you know, youth has a way of doing some wonderful things, and also has a way of really getting you in a hot water. And so, we ended up, he sued me and we sued him, and there was a bunch of law mumbo jumbo going back and forth. And in the end, the only real winner was the attorneys and my landlord. So I ended up having to come up with a bunch more money. And that
Wow.
one, a client of mine stepped up and helped secure. I got a bank loan with her backing it, and so she was kind of my guardian angel in that capacity. I had a really good relationship with her, and just laid all the financials out, and so she secured the bank loan for me, and then I just paid that off over time. In the end, between what we borrowed to open the gym in the first place, what it cost us to buy the gym in the second the second gym to combine the underneath one roof, and then what we ended up having to pay my previous landlord in a lawsuit, I had about $1 million in debt. So that was a lot of debt.
Yeah.
It was a lot of money, and in the end, it was just everything that I was doing to try and keep the gym afloat.
Mm.
Ultimately that was it. And then an opportunity had come. So we were at a particular location in downtown Boulder, and they had just built this new fancy location in downtown Boulder, and a building. And so the landlords from that building had courted us, if you will. And the landlords from our existing building had thought that our space was going to be better dedicated to a different use, office space. So we were going to lose our lease on one end, but on the other end, we had this just right across the street, which is like the perfect move for a gym, right? If I have to move somewhere, if I have to move a gym, I want to move across the street or
A lot of weights to
catty
carry.
corner. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't want it, because if you move too far, you lose your base, right? You lose your
Oh,
clients, you lose your trainers, you lose everybody because nobody wants to go. And then you have to work even harder to get it back. So we had an opportunity to move across the street. I did a bunch of negotiations with the ownership group to get my gym, to move my gym over to that location. And in commercial leases, what they don't tell you initially, nobody tells you, is you have to personally guarantee a commercial lease. So personal guarantee means that you sign a document that says, if I can't professionally pay my lease, personally, I'm liable for it. So whatever assets, I mean, if you don't have any assets and the landlord is willing to let you sign a personal guarantee, which is rare if you have no assets because there's no teeth behind the personal guarantee, right? Then good for you. But most anybody who has an asset, is that asset's going to be in jeopardy should you not be able to pay the lease. Now, some landlords are totally reasonable, and other landlords are not. And so that's something that you really need to pay attention to when you're getting yourself into a commercial lease. Like, what do you have? What's at stake personally if this business fails? Because nobody thinks their business is going to fail. Everybody is really excited and really, gung ho to open a gym. But let's be real. I mean, I don't know the specific numbers, but it's greater than 50% of gyms fail. I mean, it's probably 70, 80%. In fact, I opened Body Balance for the first time. The average failure rate of mom and pop brick and mortar entrepreneurial businesses is 70%. So
So what do you think has contributed to your ability to avoid that?
Honestly, doing your homework, right? So paying attention to those things. Know that, it's not just, you know, being a meathead, which I am, right? You know, like being a meathead is great. I mean, you just want to lift weights and be a meathead and, all that stuff is really great. But there's a whole business side of this industry that needs to be paid attention to. And, and you have a lot to lose financially. If you have a landlord, if you're 2 years into a lease and you can't pay it, and your landlord is and you have a 5-year deal or even a 4-year deal or hell, a 3-year deal that you signed, right? And let's say your average rent dollars are 10 grand a month. So you're at $120,000 annually just in rent payment. That doesn't count utilities, mechanical problems, the what if factor, right? Like all those gyms that went into COVID with 10 grand in the bank all failed, right? And you have to really understand that there's a lot behind the scenes. Things get really expensive really fast, and there's how much is your rent, right? Oh, it's $10 plus $8 triple net, so it's really $10 a square foot. And then something else that they don't ever tell you is that every year, your landlord, if you're in a commercial lease, every year your landlord does an audit on their triple net expenses, right? So triple net, it's taxes, insurance, and maintenance. So all of that is passed through to the tenant. And whatever their pro rata share is, if they're the whole building, then they pay the entire percent or the 100%. If they're 10%, they pay 10%, right? And so what they don't tell you is that, sorry, my wife, my daughter.
Okay.
What they don't tell you is that you, so, that money is tacked on annually, and then every year at the first quarter, your landlord does an assessment. And if your landlord's like, "Oh, I really screwed up and I got my triple net numbers wrong. You owe me 10 grand, 20 grand, 30 grand, 5 grand. Here's your bill. How do you want to pay it?
Oh, fuck.
Check or installments." And that's always a shock. I remember the first time I got one of those and I was like, "Whoa, what is this? Oh, triple net." And then I'm like, "What is this other number?" And they're like, "Oh, that's your new rent payment." And I'm like, "But the lease doesn't," and they're like, "Well, but the lease allows us to adjust based upon our triple net estimates." And
Ah,
so, that
that's very
$10,000 a month more lease payment can now be 10.5. Even though the lease says it's 50 cents a square foot every year, or, something along those lines, right? So it's the triple nets that kill you.
hmm.
So in the end, I opened the gym, merged the two facilities together, and, we did really well for a short period of time, but then this lawsuit with the landlord really kind of caught up to me, and then that sucked a whole bunch more money out of my world. And so we wanted to move. We tried to move into this place right across the street. And now here's the other piece of advice: don't trust anybody.
Fair enough.
I mean, I'm a very trusting individual, and I'd rather be a trusting individual than a cynic. But when you're a trusting individual, you get burned. And so just pay attention, right? Don't let the excitement of the deal overshadow the sensibility of your decision-making process.
Yes.
Um, Partnerships are tough, right? Like, when you have my wife and I are in a partnership in this business, but we're married, right? So there's no options, and we do fine. Like, I actually love being in business with my wife. But business partnerships are tough. There's a honeymoon period and then there's the reality. And sometimes partners can navigate businesses really well, but most of the time partnerships fail. If you have a partnership in a company that's very large and the partners have distinctive roles, usually, you can manage that. But when you're in a small gym environment and you're just doing it with somebody else because you couldn't afford it, you needed the money, you needed the help, the financial help, the emotional help, the physical help. Just be smart about who you pick. I've seen a lot of partnerships, plus my own experience, get ugly fast. So make sure you have good contracts in place to manage the personal relationships, right? Because if the
Mhm.
personal relationship falls apart, then you have the contract to rely on. And so, a lot of those things, that's sort of where I kind of fell short on things was I let the excitement of the deal get in my way as and didn't back it up with hard contracts. So when we went to move into One Boulder, the other facility that we were going to move into, the new facility, I had to bring in a partner because I didn't have a strong enough personal guarantee, right? So I had to bring in a partnership. And so I brought in an individual who I had purchased the gym from previously, and I brought him in as a business partner. And unfortunately, I was so focused on getting the deal done that I didn't have him sign a non-disclosure agreement, and that was my downfall. So, I had everything done, but I needed a stronger personal guarantee. I had a lease and the equipment list and the finish levels and all I needed him to do was come in and sign on the lease and provide his personal financial statement. He did so and booted me out of the deal in less than 12 hours because he had the personal guarantee, so he had the financial ability to guarantee the lease. I didn't. I had the business, but they the personal guarantee was more important than the business. So I was out of the industry altogether, like out of gym
Wow.
ownership and out. So those were the dark days, right?
Wow, that's crazy. So just so I understand, so this is a partner who's going to come in and build a business with you. You didn't have him sign an NDA, so he took the
NDA.
information that you,
Yeah,
a non-disclosure, and so he took the
correct.
information that you gave him and used that to essentially win the deal and boot you
Exactly.
out.
Behind my
Wow.
back. Actually,
That's
it's
crazy.
even worse. I mean, there's so much more to it, but in the end, so I was out. And, so it was a real struggle at that point to sort of identify with kind of what I was going to do, right? Because I was no longer a gym owner. And at that point, I'd been a gym owner for 1998 to 2006. So almost 10 years, right? And so I was just a personal trainer again. And I'm like, okay, I don't know if I can make this work. I don't know, I mean, just sort of, plus there's just the crushing emotional issues associated with what that went through. I mean, there was so much more. There was, there was a personal injury lawsuit that happened while the commercial lease lawsuit was going on. That former business partner of mine had a mental breakdown because he was being sued for personal injury that happened while he was working with somebody. They sued me as well because I owned the gym and had the master policy. He had a mental
Gosh.
breakdown. Dude, it's so much. It's going deeper than that. Like we could talk for another 30 minutes just about that. So he had a mental breakdown, resorted to a life of crime. The insurance company settled on the lawsuit. He then went to jail for a year, got out, committed suicide. You know, I got I was managing all of this stuff and trying to keep this gym afloat, and then they're taking my business away, and then I'm trying to move into a new facility, and then that gets stolen from me, and then on and on and on and on and on, right? And then I walk away from it, close on the deal, take some money, but it wasn't enough. I mean, it was still tens of thousands of dollars less than what I owed on it, but I was able to take that money and then give it to the bank, and so it paid down the note considerably, but I still had a considerable amount of money that I owed the bank. And the one thing that I had was a condo in Boulder that my father and my stepmother had purchased for me when I was in college. And I lived there with roommates when I was in college. And then, so that was the only asset that I had. And that one single asset got my ass out of trouble because as that asset rose in value, I was able to refinance it and pay off the last of the bank loan.
Wow.
Um, and then I had to deal with credit card debt, right? Because I was putting all this stuff on credit cards, just trying to keep the gym afloat. And so then I had to deal with all this credit card debt. So fast forward, I'm out of the gym industry. I'm working as a personal trainer. I get into a snowmobile accident and I break a bunch of ribs, and lacerate my liver, and partially collapse my lung, and what do I end up with? That more debt because my health insurance wasn't good enough at that time to manage a catastrophic injury like that. Because when you're self-employed, you don't always have the best health insurance because it costs so much.
Right, right.
And
Wow.
so at that point, I'm healing from the injury. I go back to work as a personal trainer. I work as a personal trainer out of a couple of different facilities for a period of time. What would that have been? 05, 06. I sold the business in 05 and 06. was working as a personal trainer. And then, so I probably did that. Yeah. So then I think it's hard to recall at this point. Oh, I met my wife. She was not a citizen, so we needed to get a citizenship for her. So we got married. I realized that I needed she needed a green card and I needed to meet minimum financial requirements. And again, I was just working. I was like, oh, I'm just going to be a personal trainer. I'm just going to work the minimum amount necessary to meet my monthly expenses. And I need a break, right? I've been hammered for the last 8 or 9 years. I just need a break. And so then I was like, all right, now I need to get serious. I need to start working. I need to start making some money so I can sponsor my wife as a green card holder. And so at that same time, a client of mine had forwarded me this job listing for a company down in Denver who was hiring a operations director for a startup fitness franchise company. So I applied and they hired me. And so I worked for about 1.5 years as an operations director for a fitness franchise company, which allowed me to get my wife the green card and, so on and so forth. I did realize very quickly that I'm unemployable. I can't work for anybody else. Having done this for so long, I can't have anybody tell me what to do, when to do, how to do it, and whether I'm doing it right. And I work harder. I don't have paid vacation, but I don't have to answer to anybody other than myself either. So, one of the recessions hit that business really hard since it was a startup fitness franchise. And again, like we talked about, how many businesses close. And so they closed and they laid everybody off. And then I started working as a personal trainer again and was able to build my business back up just by word of mouth and by contacting previous clients and by letting people know that I was personal training again, by introducing myself, by being out in the community, meeting people, and just self-promote, ask for clients from my existing clientele, work on referrals, make relationships with chiropractors, physical therapists, doctors, so on and so forth. And that was how I was able to build my personal training business back up again. And then I just realized I really wanted to be a gym owner again. And even though I'm doing fine, but I like my own gym. I have struggle in other people's gyms. I like the way I set my gyms up. I like the way that I run my facilities. It's just the entrepreneur in me, right? So then I opened my own gym in 2009 at 28th and Iris here in Boulder, and we started in a real small, sort of 1,250 square foot space. So my overhead was really low. Keep your overhead low. Low overhead, low overhead, low overhead. If you can keep your overhead low, then you don't have, and if you have some skinny months, it's okay because you have an overhead that's very low, right? Versus going big. If you want to go big, work your way into it. Going big right away is tough. Or you better be financially backed significantly. So I opened my own gym and then we grew. There were 3 other. So, we took the 1,250 square foot space. We took another 1,250 square foot space. We took another 1,250 square foot space. And then we were kind of maxed out in that space and we were doing really well. Like everything was fine. We were making money. We turned it into a 24-hour access facility, no employees, no hours of operation. Sort of the boutique facility that we have right now, right? I wasn't paying anybody to do anything other than myself and my wife, and the other personal trainers were contributing. I was the main contributor. Myself and my wife were the 2 main contributors. And then we lease space to other practitioners and we lease space to independent contract personal trainers. And I taught some classes and we opened up the gym to memberships, and we were kind of the only people in Boulder doing that at that time. I mean, maybe not the only, but maybe one of 5 facilities in Boulder that were doing that. Of course, now everybody's doing it. But we were doing fine. And then COVID hit. And then, that really, just like every facility in the world, COVID hit hard. And, I've been doing this, like I said, since I've been in the business since 1995 and never, ever has anybody just shown up and said, you're closed. And you're closed, right? And so, if you're billing 10,000, 15, 20, 100, whatever in membership revenue, then you just keep billing your membership revenue. Landlords still wanted their money. But if your money is based on service work, or your income's based on service work, and now you're no longer able to do your service, nor is any of the other personal trainers allowed to do able to do their services inside of your facility. It altered the industry forever. I mean,
Mm.
forever. We managed to stay open. Well, I mean, we were closed, but we managed to reopen when we could. And really, because I see 35 to 50 sessions a week, my revenue, and then I was just doing it on Zoom like everybody was, I was able to keep my revenue up. Landlord and I were able to strike a deal that allowed us to defer some rent. And then we started to get open again. I realized very quickly that I wasn't going to be able to maintain this high dollar retail lease. So we started looking for alternatives. And fortunately, at that point, we had just been doing pretty good financially. And so we were able to really save a lot of money. And so an office condo came available for sale, and we jumped on it. And when the interest rates were good, and we jumped on it and bought an office condo. And so then here we go again. We're breaking a lease, we're moving, so on and so forth. But fortunately, I learned enough the first time to make the second time smooth, and I had a lot more money. So basically, we took all the money that we had and we used it as down payment on the office condo to buy out our old lease and to move over to this facility. And then we had to start all over again. And that was in 2001 or 2021. So, but I'd rather start over as an owner than starting over as as a lease. It's, everything is more controllable.
Yeah.
So, now
Oh,
I'm here, and I run a really solid business, a reputable name in the community, get lots of referrals from lots of people, Zipper included. And we have a really good reputation. I've been doing this long enough. Everybody else here has been 10 years plus, some people with me for 10 years. And so in the end, we persevered, and I just kept my nose to the grindstone, if you will, and just, okay, tomorrow I'll be better. Tomorrow I'll be better. And, and it did, right? And if it wasn't for all that stuff that happened in the past, I wouldn't be sitting right here right now. And this is a good place to be sitting. Still work
mm.
hard, still long hours, still tired at the end of the day. But in the end, I get to work in a gym, and that's how I pay my mortgage and little, support our family and do all those things. And so it's a pretty good way to make a living. But it was hell to get here.
So I think there was a lot of nuggets in there. So for someone, let's say, who's in their mid-20s or maybe in their early 30s, and maybe they're the first year of owning a gym, or they're personal trainer, they want to own a gym, what would be your number one piece of advice to them?
Well, I think manage your cash flow, right? Like, manage your cash flow. I think that's, make good decisions. Don't, again, things are a little bit different in this gym age than they were when I was 30 years old. But, manage your cash flow, treat people with the respect and the kindness that they deserve to be treated. Be fair to your personal trainers, create an environment that people want to spend time at. Foster a group, a cohesion, if you will, but yet don't force people to overcommit the time that they have. And then as far as growth, I have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on advertising over the years. And for the most part, very little of it has actually ever really paid off. Most of it has been just to get my name out there. Zipper plug, Zipper, I like. Zipper's actually paying off. Zipper plug. I'm
All
happy
right.
with their services. But really, it's just like, create a fun environment, do a good job at what you do. Don't take yourself too seriously. Understand the limitations that clients go through on a daily basis, through injuries, through the family commitments, professional commitments, personal commitments, um, and be empathetic to those things, and just keep people pointed in a direction. And if you provide a good service and you treat people kindly and with respect, and you're a fair businessman, and things over the long term, you'll do fine. You'll do fine. If you need short-term cash, if that's something that you're really trying to do, is I need something fast, then you got to hustle. Then it's, then you got to, like, things that we struggle with, social media. Everybody, anybody in their 30s has a solid grasp on social media and how to make that work, right? But again, in my opinion, I'm old, but in my opinion, it's you working with seeing that person in your facility, teaching those classes, making that personal connection is you cannot stress. I cannot stress how important that is to the longevity and future of your business versus trying to be the latest and greatest social media influencer or fitness person in this capacity or that capacity. It's saturated. It's if it works for you and awesome, better, you can do that from anywhere. If you want to be an online personal trainer and you can work from anywhere and you can make it work, awesome. But in my opinion, the one thing that you can't, people will never stop going to a gym, seeing a personal trainer, taking a fitness class, working out. That will never change, ever. AI will not take away our jobs.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. It sounds like the fundamentals have really been what ultimately have worked very well for you. It's really just
it's just about perseverance, creating fostering an environment where people want to be at, treating people with kindness and respect, understanding limitation, being empathetic, and keeping people focused on the goal, right? And life happens. I mean, it really does. I mean, you may have the best plan I wake up every morning. Okay, here's my plan for the day. And 50% of those I have to throw away and improvise because of, a client has, they woke up in knee pain, shoulder pain, back pain. They're tired. They didn't get as much sleep. They're undernourished. They're late. They're stressed. It happens. Happens with me. So, being a husband and a father and a business owner has really allowed me to be empathetic to other individuals when they're struggling with their problems as well. And so the empathy ultimately allows me to identify, and then we can work through it together.
makes a lot of sense. Great. And then in terms of just, I want to blow my dog out. She's just barking.
No worries.
Great. And then in terms of hiring folks, I know that you work with, sounds like physical therapists and personal trainers. Any advice you have for folks who might be thinking about hiring consultants or
generally I would tell
contractors?
people, align yourself with people that have your similar value system, right? A similar goal, similar vision. Not just the first person that walks in the door. Maybe it will be the first person that walks in the door. Maybe it's the first person that you seek out. Maybe it's a friend. Maybe it's a friend of a friend. But in the end, make sure that they have the same value system and the same sort of goals that you have. And if you're going to bring people into your facility, whether it's physical therapists, chiropractors, even if you want to align yourself with some sort of a technician, right? Like an esthetician or, whatever, right? You're just trying to help pay your bills and take some of the stress off you. Just make sure that they understand what your expectations are and never forget it's your facility, right? So even if a personal trainer, you're running a facility, you're working side by side with the trainers that are out there. You're teaching classes just like everybody else is teaching classes. And if you see something you don't like it doesn't sit with with what your goals are, your value systems, or what your expectations are, don't be afraid to have a conversation about that. And always remember that it's your facility and you don't have to you get to decide if that's something that you want to put up with or not, right? And we've gone through a lot of practitioners. We've gone through a lot of, we started with chiropractors. We had 3 chiropractors, and then we switched over to physical therapists, which, in my opinion, our experience has just been a little bit better. I think just PTs and fitness kind of just align themselves a little bit better than chiro and PTs and fitness. We are looking to try and add space to bring in a chiropractor because there's an individual who I really like, who really likes us, and we've had a lot of conversations about what my expectations are, and he's fully aware of that. So I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying make sure you align yourself with somebody who is clear on what your expectations are, and don't be afraid to
value.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to make a change if the reality is different than the expectation initially.
Okay. So to recap, it sounds like some of the things that you recommend thinking about are making sure that you're, be trustworthy, but also have your eyes wide open, and also make sure you're not making too much of an emotional decision.
Yeah.
Find the right partners, keep your overhead low and your cash flow in control,
Yeah.
and then find people who align to the value system. Any other
Yeah.
major piece of advice that you have for folks in the industry?
You know what, man? Smile, make people laugh, have fun. Don't take yourself too serious. And be empathetic, right? The rest of it is do your own thing, man. Be your person. Be who you are. And when you're pissed off, right? And when you're happy. And we all go, gym owners, we all go through the same thing. It's like, oh crap, 10 people walked out the door for this month, right? Here, half my clients are on vacation for the summer, right? Like, just realize that if you're in it for the long haul, you just can't stress about those things. Just keep focused on the end result, keep focused on the end goal.
Mhm.
And in the end, you'll get what you want out of it, right? It'll either, if it's a lot of financial success, maybe you're not in the right business. You can make a good living in this industry, with moderate stress levels, and you can make some really wonderful relationships. I have some wonderful people in my life who I value, and friendships that I never would have made had it not been for the gym. Lifelong relationships. So when you're 30, you're thinking about, I just want to build this gym. I need to be financially X, successful, and this is what that means to me. But also realize, like, foster those relationships, because that's going to end up. Those relationships are ultimately going to be what makes you successful, not how much money is sitting in your bank account.
Wow. Amazing. Well, Jason, thanks so much for sharing your story and sharing some advice. This is still a lot of nuggets of
Yeah,
gold.
it's been an
So,
hour, right? I was like, oh, let's do it for 20 minutes. And here we are an hour later.
oh, it's great. I love it. Well, thanks so much for taking some time, and
Yeah.
have a great long weekend. Enjoy Brazil.
Thanks, man. Peace
All
out.
right.
Thanks, guys.
See you later. Bye.
See ya.